Today is October 22nd, and this is the first regional match of 2009. Hudson Raiders are playing Superior Spartans, and the Raider Volleyball has gone undefeated this year against Superior so far. Amber Sadoff puts it up. Sorry, that was Brittany Eberlin. Score is 2-1, Hudson. Brittany Eberlin sends another one over. Elizabeth Gallardi makes a good attempt. ties it up 2-2. Elizabeth Gallardi sets it up. Point goes to Superior. Superior leads by 2. Elizabeth Gallardi to Amber Sadoff. To Ashlyn Farron puts a nice one over. Elizabeth Gallardi to Amber Sadoff and to Natalie Horseman. Point goes to the Raiders. Elizabeth Gallardi served it over. That was a nice hit by Superior. Brittany Eberlin sets it up to Amber Sadoff. Superior tips it back. Krista Diedrichs serving for the Spartans. Spartans pull ahead 7-4. Brittany Eberlin to Amber Sadoff to Natalie Horseman. Nice block by the Spartans. Natalie Horseman gets it over. Steph Little and back to out of bounds. Point goes to the Raiders. Kirsten Iverson comes in to serve for the Hudson. Kirsten Iverson sets it up to Amber Sadoff. Back to Natalie Horseman. Brittany Eberlin. Kirsten to Steph Little. Puts a nice one over. Spartans were unable to return that one. Hudson's now within 1. The score is 7-6 Superior. Brittany Eberlin to Kirsten Iverson and back to Amber Sadoff, and she hits it out of bounds. Elizabeth Gallardi puts it up to Kirsten Iverson, gives it to Amber Sadoff, and Superior is not able to return that one. Score now is 7-8. Superior is ahead by 1. And Natalie Horseman, senior for the Hudson Raiders, is up to serve. Steph Little to sends it to Kirsten Iverson, and Brittany Eberlin hit it over. Spartans go ahead by 2. Score is 9-7 Superior. Superior server is sophomore Marissa Miner. Elizabeth Gillardi sends it to Kirsten Iverson, and Amber Sadoff takes that one. And Superior puts it in the net. Kristen Briggs comes into the front row while Elizabeth Gillardi sits for a bit. And Stephanie Little, sophomore for the Hudson Raiders, is back to serve. Kirsten Iverson to Amber Sadoff and to Brittany Eberlin. Kristen Briggs to Kirsten Iverson to Brittany Eberlin, and they block it. Amber Sadoff not able to take that one. Spartans lead by 2. The score is 10-8. Elizabeth Gillardi to Natalie Horseman. Kirsten Iverson puts it over. Kirsten again to Amber Sadoff, tips it. Natalie Horseman to Kirsten Iverson to Amber Sadoff. Nice tip by Kristen Briggs. Natalie Horseman puts it up to Kirsten Iverson and back to Brittany Eberlin. Ashlyn Farron comes back into the front. And junior Amber Sadoff goes to the back to serve. The score is 10-9. Hudson trails by 1. Brittany Eberlin sets it up to Amber Sadoff, and she gives it back to Brittany. And that ball goes off the fingertips of Superior. And Hudson ties it up 10-10. By Kristen Briggs. Point goes to the Raiders. They lead now 11-10. First time in the game. Hudson now goes ahead by 2. Score is 12-10. And Amber Sadoff continues to serve for the Hudson Raiders. Ashlyn Farron hits it over. Timeout, Superior Spartans. Amber Sadoff still serving for the Raiders, and the score is 13-10. Hudson leads by 3. Elizabeth Gillardi sets it up to Amber. Kristen Briggs tips it over. And they called Kristen for touching it twice. Natalie Horseman to Amber Sadoff to Ashlyn Farron. And that falls on the side of the Spartans. Brittany Eberlin goes back to serve. She's a junior for the Hudson Raiders. Score is now 14-11. Hudson leads by 3. lift. Brittany continues to serve, and the score is 16-11. Hudson leads by 5. Brittany Everlin puts that up to Amber Sadoff, and Ashlyn Farron puts it over. Hudson unable to cover that tip. Score is now 16-12. Danielle Lundgren Jr. is up for Spartans. Natalie Horseman hits this over. Nice line hit. And Elizabeth Gillardi goes back to serve. That ball was knocked out of bounds by Ashlyn Farron. Point goes to Superior. Score is 17-13. Hudson leads by 4. Brittany Everlin puts it up to Amber Sadoff. Natalie Horseman puts it over. Elizabeth Gillardi. Amber Sadoff tips it over. And the point goes to the Raiders. Kirsten Iverson comes in to serve for the Raiders. Brittany Everlin to Kirsten Iverson and to Amber Sadoff. Little is called for a lift. Hudson leads by 4. They're ahead 18-14. Natalie Horseman puts that one over. Lands on the side of the Spartans. And Natalie goes back to serve. She's a senior for the Raiders. The score is 19-14. Hudson leads by 5. Natalie Horseman serving at 20-14. Natalie Horseman serving for the Raiders, and the score is 21-14. Hudson leads by 7. And that ball goes into the net. Superior's Marissa Miner comes in to serve. Gillardi to Kirsten Iverson and to Amber Sadoff. And that goes off the hands of the Spartans. Hudson leading by 7 again. Score is 22-15. Sophomore Stephanie Little is up to serve, and Kristen Briggs comes back into the front row. Not able to return that tip by the Spartans. Score is 22-16. Set. It's a tough ball to retrieve by the Raiders. They still lead by 5. The score is 22-17. Lindsay Schold for the Superior is serving. She's a senior. Kristen Iverson puts it up to Brittany Eberlin. (22-18). Hudson leads by 4. And that ball goes out of bounds. Ashlyn Farron comes back into the front. And Amber Sadoff goes back to serve for the Raiders. Hudson leads by 5. The score is 23-18. Natalie Horseman to Elizabeth Clardy. Kristen Briggs puts that one over. And that ball is hit hard by the Spartans, but it goes out of bounds. This is game point for the Raiders. The score is 24-18. Natalie Horseman to Amber Sadoff. And that ball by Brittany Eberlin hits the line. Hudson Raiders win the first game of the match against the Superior Spartans by a score of 25-18. This is the second game of the regional match between Hudson Raiders and Superior Spartans. Hudson won the first game 25-18. And the Raider girls are starting off 1-0. Junior Amber Sadoff serving for the Raiders. And the Hudson girls are called to be in the net. Ties the game 1-1. Sophomore Allison Cute from Superior serving. She sends it to Natalie Horseman and to Amber Sadoff, and Ellie Schwartz hits it out. Superior leads by 1 by a score of 2-1. Ellie Schwartz to Amber Sadoff, to Ellie Schwartz again. Superior unable to return that hit. Carrie Pelzel coming in to serve for the Raiders. Brittany Eberlin comes out of the game. Carrie's also a senior for the Raiders. Nice block by Kristen Briggs. Another nice block by the Raiders. Elizabeth Gillardy to Amber Sadoff. And the Raiders are called for a lift. Point goes to Superior. Danielle Lundgren is serving for Superior. Elizabeth Gillardy puts it over. Gillardy back again to Sadoff, to Natalie Horseman. And that goes off the fingertips of Superior. Stephanie Little comes back into the game, the front row. And Elizabeth Gillardy, senior for the Raiders, goes back to serve. The score now is tied at 3-3. Superior hits that ball into the net. Hudson goes ahead by 1, 4-3. Schwartz covers nicely on that one, and Natalie Horseman puts that one over. Elizabeth Gillardy still serving. And the score is 5-3. Hudson leads by 2. Carrie Pelzel puts it up to Amber Sadoff. Back to Natalie Horseman. Ellie Schwartz tips that one nicely, and Superior is unable to return that one. That puts the Raiders ahead by 3. score is 6-3. Elizabeth Gallardi serving. And that ball goes out of bounds and is untouched by the Raiders. Raiders go ahead 7-3. Superior's Becca Vaughn comes into the game. Elizabeth Gallardi still serving. The score is 8-3. And that tip by the Raiders, or by the Spartans, is not returned by the Raiders. Krista Diedrich is up to serve for Superior. Carrie Pelzel to Amber Sadoff. Natalie Horseman sends it over, however, it's out of bounds. Score is 8-5. Hudson leads by 3. Carrie Pelzel to Amber Sadoff. To Ellie Schwartz, puts it over, however, it goes out of bounds. Puts it over. And the Raiders hit that one out. The score is 8-7. Hudson is only ahead by 1. Carrie Pelzel to Amber Sadoff. Stephanie Little puts it over. Superior puts that over. Ellie Schwartz to Sadoff to Schwartz again. And that ball goes out as well. Superior ties it up 8-8. Krista Diedrich is still serving for the Spartans. Elizabeth Gallardi to Amber Sadoff. Ellie Schwartz tips it over. Ellie Schwartz to Sadoff to Natalie Horseman. Spartans block that one. Amber Sadoff took that one over. Carrie Pelzel to Sadoff to Ellie Schwartz. Spartans block that. Ellie Schwartz does a nice job getting that one to where there wasn't a Spartan. Kirsten Iverson comes in to serve, and Ellie Schwartz takes a break. The Raiders lead by 1. The score is 9-8. Carrie Pelzel to Kirsten Iverson to Amber Sadoff. And that ball goes out of bounds. To Iverson to Horseman. And that ball sails out of bounds. Brittany Eberlin comes back into the game for Carrie Pelzel. And senior Natalie Horseman goes to the back to serve. The score, Hudson leads by 1, 10-9. Eberlin sets it up to Iverson. And the Raiders are called in the net. That ties the game 10-10. Junior Marissa Miner comes in to serve for Superior. Natalie Horseman to Kirsten Iverson to Brittany Eberlin. puts that ball into the net. Stephanie Little goes to the back to serve, and Kristen Briggs, senior, comes to the front. Kristen Briggs to Iverson to Brittany Eberlin. And Superior is called in the net. The point goes to the Raiders. Stephanie Little continues to serve, and the Raiders lead by 2 with a score of 12-10. Superior puts that ball into the net. Raider girls starting to widen the margin. Score is 13-10. Nice tip by Kristen Briggs. Stephanie Little continues to serve, and the score is 14-10. Hudson leads by 4. Sets it up to Kirsten Iverson, and Kirsten sets it over. Spartans unexpectedly couldn't. Timeout Spartans. Hudson leads by 5. Stephanie Little is serving for the Raiders. Score is 15-10. Little puts that up. It was a tough ball off the net. The score is 15-11. Superior's Lindsay Schold is back to serve for them. Natalie Horseman to Kirsten Iverson to Kristen Briggs. Elizabeth Gallardi to Iverson to Sadoff, and Superior puts it out of bounds. Ellie Schwartz is back into the front row. Junior Amber Sadoff is serving for the Raiders. The score is 16-11. Hudson leads by 5. Natalie Horseman to Sadoff to Eberlin. Was called out of bounds. Score is 16-12. Hudson leads by 4. Natalie Horseman to Amber Sadoff to Ellie Schwartz. And Superior sends it out of bounds. Carrie Pelzel comes in for Brittany Eberlin. She's serving at a score of 17-12. Ellie Schwartz. Hudson unable to get that one over. Hudson ahead by 4, 17-13. Carrie Pelzel unable to dig that ball. Elizabeth Gallardi. Amber Sadoff to Natalie Horseman. And that one falls on the Raiders side. Spartans are narrowing the margins. The score is 17-15. Hudson leads by 2. Carrie Pelzel to Amber Sadoff. Back to Ellie Schwartz. Nice hit by Ellie. And Stephanie Little comes into the front. Kristen Briggs takes a break, and Elizabeth Velarde goes back to serve for the Raiders. The score is 18-15. Hudson is ahead by 3. Score is 18-16. Carrie Pelzel to Elizabeth Velarde, to Natalie Horseman. Steph Little to Sadoff, to Natalie Horseman again. Kirsten Iverson comes into the front for Ellie Schwartz. And Kirsten goes back to serve. Score is 19-16. Hudson leads by 3. Carrie Pelzel to Iverson, to Steph Little. Steph Little puts it up again. Nice ace by Stephanie. Puts the Raiders ahead by 4. Timeout, Superior Spartans. Senior Kirsten Iverson serving for the Raiders. The score is 20-16. Hudson leads by 4. And that ball goes out of bounds. Abby Godelaire is a senior for Spartans. Her ball doesn't make it over the net. Senior Natalie Horseman serving with a score of 21-17. Brittany Eberlin comes back into the front row for Carrie Pelzel. Elizabeth Velarde to Kirsten Iverson. Hudson Raiders are saving the balls. Elizabeth Velarde to Kirsten Iverson. Brittany Eberlin tips it over. Point goes to the Raiders. The Spartans tipped it out of bounds. Natalie Horseman continues to serve. The score is now 22-17. Hudson leading by 5. Nice serve by Natalie. Brittany Eberlin to Kirsten Iverson to Amber Sadoff. Steph Little puts it over. One of the Raiders is called in the net. Point goes to Superior. Marissa Miner for Superior comes back to serve. 22-18. Hudson leads by 4. Stephanie Little puts it up to Iverson, and Brittany Eberlin puts it over, and the Spartans are unable to return that one. Kristen Briggs comes back into the game, into the front row. And sophomore Stephanie Little goes back to serve. Natalie Horseman to Kirsten Iverson, and to Brittany Eberlin, blocked by the Spartans. Kristen Briggs puts it over. Iverson to Little, and to Eberlin. Game point for the Raiders again. Score is 24-18. Stephanie Little continues to serve. Steph Little to Kirsten Iverson, to Amber Sadoff, tips it over. Iverson to Sadoff. And Brittany Eberlin puts it into the net. Hudson still leading, 24-19. Horseman Hudson now leading by 4, 24-20. Kristen Briggs tips that one over. Everlyn to Iverson to Sadoff. Nice hit by Emma Sadoff deep in the Spartans' court. Hudson wins the second game of the match by a score of 25-20. This is the third game of the first WIAA regional match between the Hudson Raiders and the Superior Spartans. Hudson Raiders have won the first two games by scores of 25-18 and 25-20. Amber Sadoff is going to start off the girls. Ellie Schwartz to Brittany Everlyn. Amber Sadoff sets it over. Nice block by Kristen Briggs. Another nice block by Kristen Briggs. Amber Sadoff serving again. The score is 2-0. Nice serve by Amber. Elizabeth Gillardi puts it up to Sadoff. Brittany Everlyn sets it over. Natalie Horseman to Amber Sadoff. Ellie Schwartz puts a nice one over. That increases the Hudson lead 3-0. Amber Sadoff serving it up again. And that ball goes out of bounds. Superior's Allison Cute is up to serve. Ellie Schwartz to Amber Sadoff, and Kristen Briggs puts it over. Briggs to Sadoff. And a little confusion on the court for the Raiders. Superior now only trailing by 1. The score is 3-2 Hudson. Sadoff puts it up to Ellie Schwartz, and Ellie Schwartz has a nice line hit. And Brittany Everlyn goes back to serve for the Raiders. Nice block by the Raiders. However, it was sent out of bounds. Elizabeth Gillardi to Amber Sadoff and Natalie Horseman. Kristen Briggs tips that one. Hudson unable to return that ball. Spartans have now tied the game 4-4. Elizabeth Gillardi to Amber Sadoff, back to Ellie Schwartz. And that ball goes out of bounds. Point goes to Superior. They lead by 1. Score is 5-4 Superior. Elizabeth Gillardi puts that one over. Natalie Horseman. Brittany Everlyn puts that over. And Superior called for a lift. Stephanie Little comes into the front. And Elizabeth Gillardi is back to serve. The game is tied 5-5. Elizabeth Gillardy sets it up to set off, and Stephanie Little puts it over. This puts the Raiders ahead by 1. The score is 6-5. And there's an injury timeout. Spartans put in a substitution. The Raiders lead by 2. The score is 7-5. And Elizabeth Gillardy continues to serve for the Raiders. Hit deep into the Raiders' court, and Hudson unable to return it. Hudson leads by 1, scores 7-6 Raiders. Superior's Krista Diedrich is serving it up, and Elizabeth Gillardy takes it to Sadoff, who sets it up to Natalie Horseman, and she sends a nice hard hit over. Megan Kelly comes in to serve for the Raiders. Nice block by Hudson, and that goes out of bounds. Hudson leading by 3 with a score of 9-6. Senior Megan Kelly is still serving. Megan Kelly has a nice cover. She gives it to Amber Sadoff, and Natalie Horseman hits it deep into Superior's court. Point goes to the Raiders. Timeout, Superior. Megan Kelly continues to serve. The score is 10-6. Hudson leads by 4. Nice block by the Raiders. Megan Kelly sets it up to Amber Sadoff. Natalie Horseman puts it over. Superior is called in the net. So the point goes to the Raiders. Megan Kelly again. Score is 11-6. Hudson leading by 5. And that goes out of bounds. Superior makes a substitution. Olivia Berger is in to the game for Superior. Megan Kelly serving. Nice serve by Kelly. Megan Kelly sets it up to Amber Sadoff. Natalie Horseman puts that over. Hudson now leading by 7. The score of 13-6. Superior making another substitution. Kristen Flaherty coming into the game for the Superior. Kelly sends that deep in Superior's court, and that ball goes out of bounds. Another point for the Raiders. 14-6. Nice serve by Megan Kelly. Brittany Everland sends that one over. And Superior sends that one into the ceiling. Megan Kelly continuing to serve. The score is 15-6. And that ball also goes deep into Superior's side. Brittany Everland puts it up to Megan Kelly. And to Amber Sadoff hits a nice one. Natalie Horseman to Steph Little. And Brittany Everland puts it over. Makes their substitution. Abby Godelaire comes in for the Superior. Elizabeth Gillardi has a nice hit. And that ball goes out of bounds. Hudson leads by 9 with a score of 16-7. Brittany Everland puts it up to Megan Kelly. Amber Sadoff sends it deep in the corner. Superior. Natalie Horseman goes back to serve. Hudson leading by 10. By Natalie. That brings the lead by 11. Hudson Raiders are definitely dominating this game with a score of 18-7. Timeout Superior. Natalie Horseman serving. Elizabeth Gillardi to Megan Kelly. Steph Little. It's a nice hit. That goes off the fingertips of Superior. Hudson leads by 13. Score is 20-7. Superior puts that one into the stands. Hudson now ahead by 14, 21-7. Natalie Horseman continues to serve. Puts that ball deep into Hudson's court, making it just inside the line. Superior's Marissa Miner serving. Score is 21-8. Elizabeth Gillardi puts it over. Megan Kelly to Gillardi. Steph Little takes that one. Elizabeth Gillardi puts it up to Megan Kelly. Superior puts it over the head of the Raiders. Hudson leading by 12 with a score of 21-9. Gillardi to Kelly to Brittany Everland. She has a nice hit. Briggs comes into the front. Katrina Zenz, sophomore for Hudson, comes in to serve. The score is 22-9. Into the net. Ashlyn Farron comes in for Megan Kelly. And Amber Sadoff goes back to serve for the Raiders. The score is 23-10. And Superior puts it over, but it remains out of bounds. Game point for the Raiders. Score is 24-10. Nice serve by Amber Sadoff. Hudson Raiders continue on in the regional tournament. They play Saturday, October 24th, 2009. It will either be against River Falls, Wisconsin, or Eau Claire North. The Raider girls remain undefeated against the Superior Spartans by defeating them by scores of 25-18, 25-20, and 25-10. Correction, Chippewa Falls was the conference champs. Eau Claire North came in second in the conference. Hudson Raiders were fourth in the conference this year.
North High School, Hudson High School, and the WIA require good sportsmanship by students, athletes, coaches, and spectators at educational-based interscholastic events. We request your cooperation in supporting the participants and officials. Profanity, racial, sexist, or ethnic comments or other intimidating or taunting actions will not be tolerated in our grounds for removal from the site of competition. Please enjoy the game in a positive manner. For our starting lineups for tonight's game, for Hudson Raiders, number 5, Natalie Horseman. Number 6, Amber Sadoff. Number 9, Kristen Briggs. Number 12, Stephanie Little. Number 13, Ellie Schwartz. Number 17, Brittany Everland. And the libero, Elizabeth Valowry. The starting lineups for Eau Claire North Husky. Number 2, Kate Rosemeyer. Number 7, Ashley Olsen. Number 10, Christine Kupferman. Number 11, Jessica Schilling. Number 12, Mackenzie Pura. Number 15, Callie Priest. And the libero, Abby Richardson. Hudson Raiders are coached by Dennis Sadoff, and the Eau Claire North is coached by Paris Cooley.
Hudson Raiders are going to start off the night with serving. Junior Amber Sadoff goes to the back. And Elizabeth Gillardy comes into the back row. Puts it up to Amber Sadoff, and Ellie Schwartz puts it out of bounds. Hudson trails by 2. The score is 2-0. Natalie Horseman to Sadoff to Kristen Briggs. Natalie Horseman got it up. Kristen Briggs tipped it over. Brittany Eberlin goes back to serve. Hudson trails only by 1. The score is 2-1. Elizabeth Gillardy attempts to get it up. The point goes to Eau Claire North. Eau Claire leads by 3. Score is 3-1. I'm sorry, they lead by 2. Score is 3-1. Brittany Eberlin puts it up to Natalie Horseman. And the Huskies are unable to return the Raider ball. Stephanie Little comes back into the front row, and senior Elizabeth Gillardy goes to the back line to serve. The score is 3-2. Huskies lead by 1. Brittany Eberlin. Tough tip by the Huskies. A couple more substitutions by Eau Claire North. Freshman Taylor Lobb goes to the back to serve for the Huskies. Elizabeth Gillardy sends it over to the Huskies. And that ball fell on the Raiders' side. Score is now 5-2. Eau Claire North leads by 3. Natalie Horseman puts it up to Amber Sadoff. Steph Little puts it over. Natalie Horseman to Steph Little to Horseman again. Nice save by the Raiders. Kirsten Iverson comes in to serve. Kirsten is also a senior. Ellie Schwartz sit out. To Brittany Eberlin. Kirsten Iverson tips it over, sets it over. Amber Sadoff to Little, back to Sadoff again. Amber Sadoff tips it over. Brittany Eberlin, Kirsten Iverson. Iverson again. Natalie Horseman. Huskies lead by 3. The score is 6-3. Sophomore Alicia Olson serving for the Huskies. Stephanie Little sends that one over for the Raiders. And senior Natalie Horseman goes to the back line to serve. Elizabeth Gillardy to Amber Sadoff to Steph Little. Elizabeth Gillardy, Kirsten Iverson, Steph Little again. And the Raiders tip it it over, and Eau Claire North is called in the net. Hudson now just trails by 1. The score is 6-5, Eau Claire North. And that ties the game, 6-6. Natalie Horseman continues to serve. Brittany Eberlin to Kirsten Iverson to Amber Sada. Raiders pull ahead by 1. Score is 7-6 Hudson. Nice serve by Natalie Horseman. Amber Sadoff tips that one over. And sophomore Abby Richardson is serving for the Huskies. Elizabeth Gillardi to Kirsten Iverson. Brittany Eberlin sends it a little too far. Eau Claire North goes ahead by 1. The score is 8-7. Elizabeth Gillardi to Kirsten Iverson to Amber Sada. And that ball was blocked by Kate Rosemeyer, senior for the Eau Claire North. Elizabeth Gillardi to Kirsten Iverson. Amber Sada. However, they called her in the net. Eau Claire leads now by 3. Score is 10-7. Kirsten Iverson puts it up to Brittany Eberlin. And that ball is called out of bounds. Kristen Briggs comes in for Elizabeth Gillardi. And Stephanie Little, sophomore for the Raiders, is serving for Hudson. Kirsten Iverson. Tough ball, hit the ceiling. Steph Little unable to return it in bounds. Eau Claire North leads by 3. The score is 11-8. Junior Christine Kumferman, setter for Eau Claire North, is serving. Elizabeth Gillardi. And that point goes to North. Huskies lead now by 4, 12-8. Brittany Eberlin to Kirsten Iverson to Amber Sadoff. Kirsten Iverson to Amber Sadoff. Brittany Eberlin sets that over. Amber Sadoff to Kirsten Iverson, and Brittany Eberlin tips it. That hit was by freshman Jessica Schilling for Eau Claire North. Christine Kumferman continues to serve. The score is 13-8. Eberlin is called for a lift. Puts North ahead by 6, 14-8. Timeout, Hudson Raiders. Eau Claire North leading the Raiders by 6 with a score of 14-8. Christine Kumferman Jr. for Eau Claire North is serving. Natalie Horseman called for a lift. Horseman to Kirsten Iverson to Kristen Briggs, and that ball goes out of bounds. Eau Claire North now leads by 8. The score is 16-8. Elizabeth Gillardy to Iverson to Kristen Briggs. And Eau Claire North puts that out of bounds. Ellie Schwartz comes back into the front row for Kirsten Iverson. And junior Amber Sadoff goes to the back to serve. Out of bounds by Eau Claire North. Score is now 16-10. The Huskies lead by 6. That ball was hit by senior Kate Rosemeyer. And she goes to the back line to serve for the Huskies. Natalie Horseman to Amber Sadoff. Kristen Briggs puts it out of bounds. Score is now 18-10. Hudson trails by 8. Natalie Horseman to Amber Sadoff. Brittany Eberlin. That was blocked by North. Brittany Eberlin again, and into the net. Eau Claire North now leading by 10 with a score of 20-10. Out of bounds by Eau Claire North. Brittany Eberlin serving with a score of 20-11. Trying to narrow the gap a little bit. Elizabeth Gillardy to Amber Sadoff. Ellie Schwartz takes it, and Eau Claire North sends it out of bounds. Raiders now trail by 8. Score is 20-12. Brittany Eberlin served. Elizabeth Gillardy puts a nice one up to Amber Sadoff. To Natalie Horseman, that's blocked by them. Horseman puts it back over. Kristen Briggs hits it. That goes off the hands of Elizabeth Gillardy. Tough hit by Eau Claire North. Junior McKenna Cooley for Eau Claire North coming in to serve for them. They lead by 9 with a score of 21-12. Natalie Horseman to Amber Sadoff. Natalie Horseman again. And Eau Claire North called into the net. And Stephanie Little comes to the front row while Elizabeth Gillardy goes back to serve for the Raiders. It's blocked by Steph Little. Hudson now trailing by 7. Score is 21-14. Nice serve by Elizabeth Gillardy. Hudson now trails by 6, 21-15. Elizabeth Gillardy puts that back over. And Alicia Olson tips it over, and the Raiders not able to return it. Score is 22-15. Hudson Raiders trail by 7. Freshman Taylor Laub in to serve for the Huskies. Brittany Everlin, Amber Sadoff, and Stephanie Little hits a nice hard one over. Huskies unable to return it. Kirsten Iverson comes in for the Raiders. North called for a lift. Point goes to the Raiders. They're now within 5 with a score of 22-17. And that ball is hit by Mackie Fadness. She's a sophomore, and that goes out of bounds. Eau Claire Raiders are now within 4. And Eau Claire North calls a timeout. The score is Hudson Raiders have narrowed the gap. The score is 22-18. They trail now only by 4. Kirsten Iverson serving again for the Raiders. Nice tip by either Steph Little or Natalie Horseman. Kirsten Iverson puts it up to Amber Sadoff. Elizabeth Gillardy to Kirsten Iverson. Steph Little puts it in the net. Sophomore Alicia Olson serving for Eau Claire North. Elizabeth Gillardy to Iverson. Nice hit by Stephanie Little. Eau Claire North taken off guard. The score is 23-19. And senior Natalie Horseman serving for the Raiders. And the Raiders called over the line. This is game point for Eau Claire North. The score is presently 24-19. Timeout, Hudson. Again, game point for Eau Claire North. The score is 24-19. The Raiders trail by 5. Sophomore Abby Richardson serving for the Huskies. Elizabeth Gillardy puts it over. Elizabeth Gillardy again. Steph Little and Natalie Horseman sets it over. The Raiders unable to return the tip of Callie Priest. And Eau Claire North wins the first game with a score of 25-19. This is the second game of the regional match between Eau Claire North and the Hudson Raiders. Eau Claire North won the first game by a score of 25-19. Eau Claire North serves it into the net. Start the Raiders off with a score of 1-0. Amber Sadoff starting off the girls, the Raider girls, and serving. And Eau Claire North called for a lift. Hudson leads by 2-0. Nice serve by Amber Sadoff. Brittany Everlin to Sadoff to Everlin again, and that's blocked and out of bounds. Hudson leading by the widest margin yet with a score of 4-0. Amber Sadoff continues to serve for the Raiders. Another nice serve. just cleared the net. Amber Sadoff, Brittany Eberlin. Elizabeth Glardy puts that up to Eberlin. Ellie Schwartz set it over. It was a hard ball hit by junior Callie Priest. Score is now 4-1. Hudson Raiders leading by 3. Natalie Horseman to Amber Sadoff and Kristen Briggs. So that's a quick one over, or hits a quick one over. And that ball goes out of bounds. Hudson Raiders lead by 4. Brittany Eberlin going back to serve. The score is 5-1. North called for a carry. Brittany Eberlin serving. Score is 6-1. Hudson leads by 5. It's a hard hit by Alicia Olson from the Huskies. And McKenna Cooley coming in for the Huskies. Elizabeth Glardy to Amber Sadoff. Brittany Eberlin. Eberlin sets it up to Amber Sadoff. Kristen Briggs hits it, however, it was blocked by sophomore Alicia Olson for the Huskies. McKenna Cooley continues to serve. The score is now 6-3. Hudson leading by 3. Glardy, Amber Sadoff tipped it over. That was a nice save by Natalie Horseman. Brittany Eberlin, Amber Sadoff. Natalie Horseman sends that over. Natalie Horseman to Sadoff. The Raiders get tripped up. Huskies have narrowed the Raiders' lead. It's now 6-4. Eberlin hit that one over. Eberlin to Sadoff, to Ellie Schwartz. Kate Rosemeyer of the Huskies hit that one over. Natalie Horseman to Amber Sadoff, Ellie Schwartz. Stephanie Little comes into the front, and Elizabeth Glardy goes to the back to serve. Raiders lead by 2. The score is 7-5. North hits that one into the net. Raiders now lead by 3 with a score of 8-5. Brittany Eberlin to Amber Sadoff. Natalie Horseman. Jessica Schilling, freshman for Eau Claire North, hits that one out of bounds. Point goes to the Raiders. They now lead by 4. The score is 9-5 Raiders. Horseman had a nice return. Horseman again. And Steph Little tips it over. The Raiders unable to get that one. The Raiders lead by 3. The score is 9-6. Elizabeth Gillardi to Amber Sadoff to Ellie Schwartz. Brittany Everlin. Ellie Schwartz. Elizabeth Gillardi to Natalie Horseman. Steph Little sets it over. Steph Little hits it again. Sadoff sets that up to Horseman and she hits it. That went off the fingertips of the Raiders. Huskies are now within 1. The score is 9-8. Hudson leading by 1. Natalie Horseman. Steph Little hit that one over after it was tipped by the Huskies. Ellie Schwartz to Amber Sadoff to Natalie Horseman. And that goes out of bounds. Huskies have now tied it up. The score is 9-9. Brittany Everlin to Amber Sadoff. Schwartz's ball is blocked by senior Alicia Olson. Huskies now take the lead for the first time of the game. The score is 10-9. Huskies. Natalie Horseman to Amber Sadoff. Horseman again. Iverson comes in to serve for the Raiders. Score is tied 10-10. And that ball is served out of bounds. Huskies go ahead 11-10. Sophomore Alicia Olson serving for the Huskies. Elizabeth Gillardi to Iverson to Horseman. Brittany Everlin to Horseman. Kirsten Iverson. Everlin to Iverson, set off. Horseman hits a deep ball. Hard hit by senior Kate Rosemeyer. Timeout. Hudson, they trail by 3. The score is 13-10. Elizabeth Gillardi puts it up to Kirsten Iverson. Amber Sadoff sends free ball over. And Mackenzie Pirog, freshman for Eau Claire North, sends it deep into Hudson's court. Raiders now trail by 4. The score is 14-10. Brittany Everlin to Iverson. Elizabeth Gillardi to Iverson. Everlin sends one over. A nice attempt by Elizabeth Gillardi to return Kate Rosemeyer's ball. Abby Richard. Oh. Alicia Olson serving. With a score of 16-10, Hudson trails by 6. Sadoff hits this one over. Nice save by Brittany Everlin and Steph Little. Iverson. Huskies unable to return that ball. Senior Natalie Horseman goes back to serve. Huskies lead by 5. The score is 16-11. Score is now 16-12. Natalie Horseman has a nice ball. Huskies now lead by 5 again. Score is 17-12. Sophomore Abby Richardson serving for the Huskies. Elizabeth Gallardi to Iverson, Steph Little. Gallardi to Iverson to Steph Little again. That was Everlin to Iverson. Ball was just too far out of bounds for Sadoff to get it back in. Score is 18-12. Raiders trail by 6. Everlin to Iverson, to Brittany Everlin again. And Kate Rosemeyer sent that one deep into the Raider court. Score is now 19-12. Megan Kelly into set for the Raiders. Elizabeth Gallardi to Megan Kelly, Brittany Everlin. A hard hit by junior Kelly Priest, and the Raiders unable to return it. Huskies lead by 8. The score is 20-12. Megan Kelly to Amber Sadoff. Nice block by Steph Little. And senior Kristen Briggs comes back into the game. And Steph Little goes to serve for the Raiders with a score of 20-13. The Raiders trail by 7. Steph Little to Megan Kelly to Kristen Briggs. Nice ace by Kristen Briggs. Score is now 20-14. Nice dig by Megan Kelly. Brittany Everlin hit a nice hard one deep into the Husky court. Score is now 20-15. The Raiders trail by 5. Stephanie Little still working on catching up with for the Raiders. And that ball went off the fingertips of the Raiders and then out of bounds. Score is 21-15. Eau Claire North Huskies lead by 6. This is junior Christine Kumferman for the Huskies. Gallardi to Briggs. Elizabeth Gallardi sets it up to Megan Kelly. Brittany Everlin tips it, but it's blocked, and it lands in the Raider court. Score is now 22-15. Elizabeth Gillardy to Megan Kelly, Brittany Eberlin. Kelly. Timeout, Raiders. They trail 23-15. Christine Comferman serving. The Huskies lead by 8. Brittany Eberlin on a nice dig. Eberlin again. Natalie Horseman to Megan Kelly. Kristen Briggs gets that one over, and it lands on the Huskies side. Score is 23-16. Eau Claire North leading by 7. Ellie Schwartz comes in to the front row. Megan Kelly sits. Set off to Gillardy. Kristen Briggs sends a free ball over. And Alicia Olsen for the Huskies sends it to the line of the Raider court. This is game point for the Huskies. Senior Kate Rosemeyer serving. Elizabeth Gillardy set off to Briggs. Score is 24-17. Brittany Eberlin serving for the Raiders. Nice serve by Eberlin. Elizabeth Gillardy set off to Horseman. And Alicia Olsen sends a hard one over the net, and the Raiders are unable to block it. Eau Claire North wins the second game of the match. The score is 25-17. This is the third game of the regional match between the Hudson Raiders and Eau Claire North. The Raider girls need to win this game to continue. Eau Claire North has won the first 2 games by scores of 25-19 and 25-17. Amber Satoff starting off this game. First point goes to Eau Claire North. Senior Kate Rosemeyer for Eau Claire North serving. The score is 1-0 Eau Claire. Natalie Horseman to Satoff. Brittany Eberlin takes that one. Oh, nice dig by Amber Satoff. That was a hard hit. Elizabeth Gillardy to Satoff. Brittany Eberlin tips that over. Gillardy to Satoff. Kristen Briggs tips that. Score is 2-0. Nice return by Elizabeth Gillardy. Natalie Horseman to Elizabeth Gillardy. Ashlyn Farron sends that one over. Set off. Hudson now trailing by 3. Scores 3-0. Natalie Horseman to Amber Satoff to Ashlyn Farron. Ashlyn Farron to Satoff to Brittany Eberlin. And that ball is blocked. Eberlin tries again. Horseman to Gillardy. Ashlyn Farron. And that goes out of bounds. Claire North leading by 4. The score is 4-0. Kate Rosemeyer continues to serve for the Huskies. Elizabeth Gallardi to Amber Sadoff. That ball goes out of bounds. However, it was first touched by Eau Claire North. Carrie Pelzel comes in to serve. She goes into the back row for Brittany Aberlin. Raiders trail by 3 with a score of 4-1. Point goes to Eau Claire North. Score is 5-1 Huskies. Elizabeth Gallardi puts it over. And Alicia Olsen sends that one out of bounds. Elizabeth Gallardi back to serve for the Raiders, and Stephanie Little comes into the front. Nice tip by Steph Little. And Eau Claire North hits it out of bounds. Elizabeth Gallardi serving yet. The score is 5-3. And that ball lands on the side of Eau Claire North. The Raiders have now decreased their deficit. They only trail by 1. The score is 5-4. Nice block by Natalie Horseman. Ashlyn Farron to Sadoff to Natalie Horseman. And Alicia Olsen hits a tough one over. Score is 6-4. Raiders trail by 2. Carrie Pelzel to Amber Sadoff to Natalie Horseman. And Eau Claire North hits that out. Megan Kelly comes in to serve for the Raiders. Megan's a senior for the Raiders. Mackenzie Pirog sends that one out of bounds. And Alicia Olsen hits that one deep in the Hudson court. Score is 7-6. Huskies lead by 1. Alicia Olsen serving for the Huskies. Carrie Pelzel dives, and Elizabeth Gallardi gets that over. That point goes to the Huskies. They now lead by 2. The score is 8-6. Gallardi to Kelly. Score is 9-6. Carrie Pelzel called for a lift. Huskies now lead by 4. Score is 10-6. Carrie Pelzel to Kelly to Amber Sadoff. There's a block attempt by Steph Little. Huskies now lead by 5. The score is 11-6. Alicia Olson continues to serve for the Huskies. Amber Sadoff to Megan Kelly. Amber Sadoff again. Her hit was blocked. Timeout Raiders. The score is 12-6 Huskies. Score is 12-6. Alicia Olson continues to serve for the Huskies. Carrie Pelzel puts it up to Amber Sadoff, and Pelzel sets it over. That ball is hit deep into the backcourt of Hudson by Mackenzie Pirog. Pirog's a freshman for the Huskies. Sophomore Alicia Olson serving. Katrina Zenz comes into the game. Horseman to Kelly, Sadoff. Zenz to Kelly to Sadoff again. Score is now 15-6. Huskies lead by 9. Trina Zenz to Gallardi to Sadoff. And that goes out of bounds. Sadoff. And the other girl's unable to get to it in time. Raiders now trail by 9. Score is 17-6 Huskies. And that ball goes out of bounds by Alicia Olson. Natalie Horseman serving for the Raiders. Brittany Everlin back into the front row. And that ball goes out of bounds. Sophomore Abby Richardson serving for the Huskies. Score is 18-7. Elizabeth Gallardi to Megan Kelly. To Brittany Everlin sends a hard hit over. Kristen Briggs comes back into the game. And sophomore Stephanie Little serving for the Raiders. Score is 18-8. Hudson trailing by 10. Raiders called for a lift. The score is now 19-8. Junior Christine Comferman serving for the Huskies. Natalie Horseman to Megan Kelly to Amber Sadoff. And the Huskies hit that one in the net. Amber Sadoff back to serve. Score is 19-9. Huskies lead by 10. Ashlyn Farron comes into the game. And that ball is hit out of bounds. However, it was touched by the Raiders before it went. Point goes to the Huskies. And a tip by Alicia Olson. It's a tough one, and the Raiders are unable to return it. Senior Kate Rosemeyer serving now for the Huskies. Rosemeyer is the only senior on the Huskies team. Eau Claire North leads by a score of 21-9. Ashlyn Farron to set off, and Natalie Horseman sends a free ball over. Nice dig by Elizabeth Gallardi. Good block by Farron. And Eau Claire North sends that into the net. Katrina Zenz in to serve for the Raiders. Score is 21-10. And the Raiders are called in the net. Huskies make some substitutions. Junior McKenna Cooley in to serve for the Huskies. Huskies lead by 12. The score is 22-10. Elizabeth Gallardi puts it over. Block attempt by the Raiders. Score is 23-10. Natalie Horseman puts it over. The Raiders unable to return it. This is game point for Eau Claire North. Katrina Zenz to set off. Ashlyn Farron hits a nice ball. Set off to Briggs. And that's the game and the season for the Hudson Raiders. Eau Claire North wins all three games. This game ends with a score of 25-10. Eau Claire North now goes on to play in the sectional portion of the tournament.